Welcome to the Community IT Innovators webinar on nonprofit AI governance tips. We've been doing a lot of webinars and blog posts around AI, and we have a new nonprofit AI podcast that comes out on Tuesdays covering news and resources for nonprofits. And a recent study found that 80% of nonprofits are using AI without any governance policies at all. So that's unmanaged adoption, and it leads to lots of risks, leads to everyone in your nonprofit heading off in different directions when they're using the AI. So I'm really excited today to talk to our senior consultant, Nura Aboki, who has been assisting our clients in implementing AI for over a year now. A lot of the content about AI at nonprofits can be kind of theoretical or strategic, but today we're going to get a chance to hear from him about real life nonprofits and the decisions they're making around AI tools and adoption. So my name is Carolyn Woodard. I'm the Outreach Director for Community IT. I'll be the moderator today. Very happy to hear from our expert, but first I want to go over our learning objectives. So today we want to focus on these themes. What do you need to know about AI implementation? What is AI literacy? What is AI governance? And what are good models to follow for decision making and policy making? What are AI risks? And some emerging best practices from some case studies. And now I'd like to let Nura introduce himself.
Thank you so much, Carolyn. Hello, everyone. I'm Nura Aboki. I'm excited to be here. As Carolyn mentioned, I've been helping nonprofits explore and adopt AI tools over the past year or so. I really look forward to sharing practical stories and tips from those experiences, and I'm eager to answer your questions as we go through today.
Yeah, we're going to try and leave some time for questions. I have to tell you at the outset, we were just going over our slides and we packed a lot in. So we may have to go over some of the slides fairly quickly. They will all be on our website. We'll have the transcript. I'll include all of the links that we share and resources on our website as well, communityit.com. So don't worry about it if something kind of flies by. But if you have questions at any time, go ahead and put them in the chat or in the Q&A. Before we get started, if you're not familiar with Community IT, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about us. We're a 100% employee-owned managed services provider. We provide outsourced IT support exclusively to nonprofit organizations. Our mission is to help nonprofits accomplish their missions through the effective use of technology. We're big fans of what well-managed IT can do for your nonprofit. We serve nonprofits across the United States, and we've been doing this for 25 years. We are technology experts and are consistently given an MSP 501 recognition for being a top MSP, which is an honor we received again in 2025. And we believe we're the only MSP on that list serving nonprofits exclusively. I want to remind everyone that for these presentations, Community IT is vendor agnostic. We only make recommendations to our clients only based on their specific business needs, and we never try to get a client into a product because we get an incentive from that or a benefit. We do consider ourselves a best of breed IT provider. It's our job to know the landscape, what tools are available, reputable, and widely used, and we make recommendations on that basis for our clients based on their business needs, priorities, and budget. As I said, we're going to leave as much time as we can for Q&A, but I don't expect it to be very much time. You can submit your questions through the chat or Q&A feature at any time today. We got a lot of good questions at registration also, so we're going to try and answer as many of those as we can in our presentation, but anything we can't get to, please join us and Nura today in our community on Reddit at r/nonprofit IT management. We're going to be over there continuing to answer some questions after this webinar for about 30 minutes after. And of course, you can always join us there and ask questions, and we check that, so we will be able to answer them later too. We're recording this presentation. I will send links to the video, podcast, and transcript within a week, so don't worry too much about taking notes. Please do stay to the end and take our survey on exiting the webinar. It's only 6 questions. Your feedback really helps us improve and pick future topics you'd like to hear about. And one lucky winner chosen at random will win a $25 gift certificate for filling out that survey. A little bit more about us. Our mission is to create value for the nonprofit sector through well-managed IT, and we also identify four key values as employee owners that define our company: trust, knowledge, service, and balance. We seek to always treat people with respect and fairness, to empower our staff, clients, and sector to understand and use technology effectively, to be helpful with our talents, and we recognize that the health of our communities is vital to our well-being and that work is only a part of our lives. So now I'm going to launch our first poll. So if you don't mind answering, the question is, do you have AI policies? And the answers that you can choose are, I don't think so. There's no shame. You've come to the right place. Second answer is, we are in the process of creating policies. Third answer is, yes, our organization has created an AI acceptable use policy. The fourth answer is, yes, and our staff understand our policy, are using it every day. And the fifth answer is not really applicable. So maybe you've joined our webinar and you aren't at a nonprofit, you're just here to learn more about it, so it doesn't really apply. So it looks like we have pretty good participation. I'll give you another moment or two to get your answer in. If you've been waiting, just go ahead and click on your answer. And yeah, it looks good. Okay, I'm gonna end that poll and share it. And Nura, can you read the results?
Yeah, was quite interesting. Yeah. So yes, I'm really impressed about what I'm seeing. About 21% said we don't have an IT policy. I don't think so. And this is we expect that several organization, nonprofit organization would not have one. But what I'm really impressed by is a lot of 53% actually said they are creating one. They're in the process. So that's quite impressive to see that. And hopefully some of the tips we shared today would help in that endeavor. And then we have those that do have about 15% already an AI acceptable use policy. And then there's about 6% that does have acceptable policy AI and staff know about it. So quite impressive. That's ideal. But don't worry, wherever you are on this spectrum, our content should be useful to you. So we're going to start by laying out some of the foundational principles about AI and nonprofits, and then which will be able to give you additional context, whether you are a beginner or already advanced and have staff know about this.
Yeah, that was really interesting. And congratulations, as Nara said, to everyone who is working on it. And if you haven't started yet, we're hoping that this will give you some place to start from. But thanks for coming because clearly it's important. So this slide actually we shared in January in our technology for nonprofits roundtable, and I just wanted to share it here because that feels like 100 years ago in AI year terms. But these are some of our talking points and kind of what we stand by, that you need to match your tools to your needs. Beware of freemium tools that you aren't paying for a license, so you don't have a relationship with a business relationship with that vendor. Making sure the human is the last editor. You'll hear that called human in the loop often when they're talking about AI. Having a policy, keeping training and talking about it. The AI is being added to tools that you already use, so you need to take that into account. And again, just taking training seriously and upskilling yourself and your staff. So I felt like this slide, kind of illustrates the tools, and AI is changing really quickly. But there's some emerging truths that are happening, which is that the underlying principles of how you use AI are not changing as rapidly as the tools are changing. So having a strong IT foundation allows you to adopt new tools well. AI is a new tool. It's very disruptive. It's changing our work and our sector, but it is a tool. And our past experiences with tool transformations can help you in this instance too. So, for example, when a lot of nonprofits moved to the cloud, that was a similar time where everything was changing. Having a good foundation, having policies, and really being transparent about it are all very important when you have a new tool that's like coming in so quickly. I want to share a couple of resources with you as well, just quickly. I will share the link in the chat with you. This is from a Department of Labor publication about AI literacy and how it is changing the workforce. I found it very helpful. It's a short PDF document. You can find it online. It has probably 4 or 5 pages about each of these points. So I'm not going to go into deep on any of them now. Just wanted to share this graphic with you. They have a free download. They have excellent ideas on training, hiring, AI literacy in general. So they start with what AI literacy entails. So, understanding what AI is, exploring the use, directing the AI effectively, evaluating AI outputs, and using it responsibly, taking into account ethics. And then on the flip side, also part of this document, they have their effective delivery principles of AI literacy. So, basically, training. How do you go through training with your staff? And they have these different touch points. And as I said, in the document itself, they have a bunch more of details on how to do these 7 different points. I'm also going to share with you in the chat some resources around AI literacy that are specific to nonprofits. So TechSoup has some courses. Inten has a certification. There's the Human Stack, NetHope. You can also search for on Microsoft, Google, and Anthropic for free AI training for nonprofits. If you did an update on a tool or a platform you already use, and you notice there's a new AI tool, like a little icon or a helper, a chatbot. Usually, you can access that tool's knowledge base and learn more about how to use the AI within the tool. So, for example, in your CRM, Zoom, MailChimp, Google Analytics, they're all introducing AI tools that can help you. But that's something where just look in the tool and it'll give you more information about how to use the AI. So I wanted to also share this link to an article that we put out from our president and COO, Johanny Torrico, where she just did a really good analysis, I think, of a mission-aligned AI adoption model. It's a free download. You can get it on our site, and I shared it in the chat with you. It'll be in the transcript. I think we can say at this point, 100% of nonprofits have staff using AI tools. But as I said earlier, there's a recent survey that came out with TechSoup and Candid where they found that only 80% of nonprofits have an AI policy. So I'll share that article with you as well if you haven't seen it already. And now I want to turn it over to Nura for our first case study. So, Nura, you talked about some organizations that you worked with AI implementation. So, can you give us a little bit of how they went about it?
Yeah, thank you, Carolyn. I'd like to share two real world scenarios here. And I've encountered that, what nonprofit organizations need to consider at the start of AI adoption has to do with looking at AI policy and governance. So one scenario was a nonprofit executive suddenly realized staff were using AI tools without any policy, which is kind of commonplace these days, and said, we need a policy now. People were already experimenting with AI and there was no guidance. So when leadership stepped in with the urgent mandate, staff were uneasy. Those who hadn't used AI were asking, why do we need this tool? What's the plan? Why should we trust these tools? The leadership quickly saw that there would be a need to provide clear strategic rationale or guidelines, essentially just answering the staff's question of why uh, before an AI rollout would succeed. So they took a pause to define how AI aligned with their goals and what guardrails would be used to keep them safe, and only then to resume into implementation. So this asking of why, even if leadership says you need a policy, it's very important for leaders, for stakeholders in the organization to understand with that clarity. Why do we need to use these tools, and why do we need a policy to guardrail us? Because if that is clearly understood, then you will have buy-in and we'll have a direction, and it says we would have a better strategy on how to use AI tools. I would want to add just a second example here, sort of a non-profit organization whose mission is environmental sustainability. Were initially hesitant about AI. So you can think of what we've probably read or what we've heard, how AI is using up a lot of energy, a lot of resources in our environment. So staff were worried. Look, our mission is to protect the environment. So why are we considering using AI? Because as we know, as we've read about it, it's using a lot of resources, computing resources, which will kind of contradict their mission. So there was that internal debate. Can we justify using AI if our mission is to protect the environment? Ultimately, they reached a consensus that AI could help them in a way in many ways that justified the environmental cost. For example, automating tasks so staff could focus more on mission critical work. But they also committed to using greener AI options to offset their where possible. But this open values and discussion was essential because otherwise staff would just feel a sense of guilt. So once everybody was comfortable and understood the reason, there was that mission alignment of how AI could actually be used responsibly. And they proceeded to set out policy and then training staff on how to use AI. Just the key takeaway there is before implementing AI at your nonprofit organization, you want to address that fundamental why and how questions internally.
That's a perfect segue into our second poll,
Mhm.
which is the biggest barriers to AI governance. So I'm going to go ahead and launch that. And the question is, what is the biggest barrier at your nonprofit to AI governance? So your options are one, leadership challenges. And that could cover a broad range of things from the leader that you said, Nura, who, was really excited about it and needed to make sure that they weren't going too fast for the rest of the staff, or, leaders that might be very reluctant about it, but they have staff that are really excited about it. So challenges in leadership and even sometimes just finding the time. Number two is don't know where to start, right? Is a barrier of finding where the information and like how to get started. Three is started but stalled because we lack time and capacity. What nonprofit has plenty of time and extra capacity to do anything? So if I'm trying to prioritize this along with all of your other priorities, it can get lost. Number four is we're using so many AI tools already, and we haven't needed governance so far. So a little tongue in cheek there, because we already started off saying like everyone needs governance, but you can feel like you're in that situation of we all just, this team uses this one, I use this one personally. We don't really need to have a full governance for our organization. So we're going to talk through that one, but again, no shame. If that's where you're at, just let us know. Number five is something else, a different barrier. So if you want to put that in chat, if you feel comfortable sharing it with us, we would love to hear that. And then the other one is, again, just not applicable. It's not, you're here to learn for a different reason, but maybe your nonprofit isn't in this or you're not at a nonprofit. So, all right. So, Nora, can you see this also?
Yeah, wow. Also, here I can see that there are some leadership challenges. About 3% say that that's one barrier, but 36% here say, well, we don't know where to start. They're unsure of where to start. We have about 33% who said we've started but stalled because we lack time or capacity. So we totally understand, especially with small non-profit organizations, capacity can be a challenge, but we'll talk about that uh, shortly. And then the others, not applicable. There wasn't any results for we're using so many tools already, and we haven't gotten the need for governance so far.
So it can happen, like I said, but
Yeah.
congratulations, everyone here. It makes sense that you're in a webinar about governance because you
Mhm.
think governance is important. There were some really interesting things that came in under other, so I'm just going to quickly
Hmm.
shout out them. Thank you for using that feature. One of the biggest problems is that the genie is out of the bottle, and controlling what tools people are using is proving challenging, the challenge of shadow AI.
Hmm.
Another other is overwhelmed with AI intrusion into everything, paired with knowing there are devastating consequences for communities and the planet. And good information about the real consequences are hard to come by. I hear you. That is for sure. Most of our staff are ethically opposed to AI and don't want to touch it. A few people are interested in specific tools and instances. Definitely hear you. You've come to the
Hmm.
right place. We're seeing that a lot. Another is disparities in access to free versus paid AI tools across staff. Definitely, it's hard to say, oh, we should budget for licenses for everyone when you're like, oh, it's free. I can just go out here and do it. And another one is that among other challenges, I think a big barrier is the reality that AI is impacting our communities so significantly, both the environmental impact and on our community. With data centers threatening our desert
Hmm.
region and resources, it's difficult to navigate a use policy. So much goes against our core values. So we
Hmm.
definitely hear you. That is something we're hearing a lot from nonprofits. So you're not alone in feeling that. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. Thank you, everyone who shared with us. I really appreciate it. And we're going to move on. And Nura, you have some more that you want to talk about in the many organizations that you've worked with over the past year. Some clear best practices are starting to emerge. So I'd love to hear more about it.
Yeah, so now we'll start with some best practices for implementing AI. These steps will address many of the barriers that you've identified. So the first one there that you see is starting with a clear communication and change management plan. Before anything, get your team on the same page because it's very important. You need to explain you're exploring AI and how it could help your mission. So that way, those questions around why will be clearly communicated. So I address the fears upfront that people have, so everyone is at least open-minded about AI. Second one is taking that structured, intentional approach. Treat AI adoption like any other major project because this thing is really making a difference. So we want to take it seriously. We want to have a methodology and approach that is intentional. We want to bring in key stakeholders early and plan the phases and basically do not just flip a switch overnight because that's what ends up happening. You end up with a shadow AI, as someone mentioned earlier. So, quick adoption might be tempting, but intentional planning prevents problems down the line. Then the third one here really talks about appointing an AI owner. Identifying someone who can be a champion or who's willing to be a champion and manage the AI tool internally is important, but you may argue we're a small nonprofit organization. We may not necessarily have someone that can be a specialist there, but AI is widely used. And if you understand how important it is for your mission, then as setting aside or identifying an owner would be quite useful for your organization. It might be one person on any staff that is passionate and knowledgeable about AI or is willing to learn about AI, and they'll be the kind of go-to person to your organization and how these tools work and its settings and preferences, and you have ready human answers ready, not having to go to Google and get a curated answer, but someone that has experienced it that you trust will be able to provide guidance. So, like appointing an owner is highly valuable. And then we move on to the fourth point there in terms of best practices, just deciding on metrics, guardrails, and running a pilot. Defining what success looks like, whether it's improving accuracy, whether you're going to save staff time, and setting boundaries like do not PII into the AI, is very important there. Then you want to run a pilot project. Let a small group of staff use the tool on the setting guardrails that you've defined and then get feedback. Rather than opening it up to the entire company or organization, you want to start small with that pilot project. Feedback is important to kind of iterate and make sure the experiences that people ultimately end up with is something that your organization is going to have value around. Then the fifth one is definitely doing your due diligence. While this pilot runs, uh, evaluate multiple tools options with transparent criteria because the tools are evolving. In the past, when we started hearing about generative AI, it was one tool, big popular tool in AI. But now there are other tools today. It may be Claude or another tomorrow. So definitely you want to evaluate the variety out there and consider feature cost, kind of the data security that is around the tool and also that vendor reliability. What if you use a tool that you end up with a tool that a vendor closes? That could be a risk there. So involve leadership in weighing those options and risks. And then when you pick a tool, document why. And it helps everyone kind of trust the choice that has been made. And you may not necessarily land on one tool. It could be a variety of tools, but that are useful to your organization. So then you want to move on to after deciding on a tool, providing basic training for all staff of the chosen tool. Once you have that tool, training your staff on how to use it, or at least how staff will be affected by it, is very useful and beneficial. So that will cover both how to use it and your rules for using it. That is the policy that you set around the use of AI. Then give people time to practice solo, to encourage them to experiment within safe bounds. Because that those guardrails that we talked about, the policy would have those guardrails in writing so people know their limits on how to use the tool. Uh, and then as you see, lastly, there we are saying another best practice that we are seeing encouraging our nonprofit organizations to do is to have a second training. It's not just one training that you know the basics, but you want to look at how you can harness the potential of AI by focusing on collaboration and sharing lessons. So after folks have some experiences, they want to bring it back together for a deeper session on using AI tools within a team workflow or the organizational workflow. This is where you'll see real adoption and the biggest benefits when people learn from each other's use cases and integrate AI into everyday processes. So I would say by following these steps, communication, planning, piloting, due diligence, and training, you weave governance into this actual implementation. So it ensures everyone is involved, risks are managed, and your AI adoption is aligned with your mission from the start.
I want to briefly acknowledge this great conversation that's going on over in chat around the ethics of using AI at all. So great comments. I think there's an emerging kind of philanthropy slash nonprofit. Some consortiums are emerging around using AI for the good of the planet and the people versus a for-profit bent of AI right now, and that's something that philanthropy can really speak to. That's a kind of a separate conversation, but I just wanted to acknowledge that. And there are some resources out there, so I'm going to see if I can pull some up and share those as well. But I wanted to move on a little bit to what is AI governance? So just to make sure that we're kind of level setting here, some of the great things that Nura just talked about. So all of these questions, right, of who decides what your AI policy is at your organization? Is it a leader? Is it a all staff decision? Those sorts of questions. Who decides what tools get used? You may want to have something that's very specific, like we only use these tools. Those are the only approved ones. Or you might want something more flexible for different teams that have different tasks that they're trying to do with these different tools. So you might have more around principles. So this is how we choose a tool. So who purchases or owns the tools? Who decides on AI access to files? How do they monitor risks? Who is responsible when something goes wrong? How does your policy stay current? How often do you revisit it? How does your staff know what the policy is? We had that in the past poll about we have a policy and staff are using it and know where to find it. So these are not, like this is how you do it. This is more questions that you need to take back to your organization and sit with and talk about, like, how do you make these decisions? And along with those decisions that kind of hint at some of these risks that AI risks that nonprofits should know about. Your data privacy, what is shared, what's accessible. When you said earlier, it's hard to get people using a paid license or justify having a paid license when there's a free version. but that free version carries a lot of risks with it when you're, uploading documents to it or making queries and prompts. Cybersecurity vulnerabilities that may increase because you're using AI, or because hackers are using AI and they have more access to what you shouldn't be doing. Shadow AI, we talked about that earlier. Staff are just using a whole bunch of different tools, and all of that brings risk to it. Bias and equity issues. So I think this is getting at a little bit what we're speaking about in the chat around which tools you're using, how they were trained. Are they harming communities that you care about? Are they enabling communities that you care about? And those questions that really speak to your values as a nonprofit. Vendor commitment and tool churn. So what is your investment? How would you migrate if you change your mind? Like, we thought we were going to use this tool. Now we're deciding we're using this other tool. What if that vendor goes out of business? We're in the middle of a bubble right now. So there's a lot of consolidation. There's a lot of market forces going on. So you might commit to a tool and 6 months later it goes belly up. Staff confusion and distrust, staff that have different ideas about what your AI policy should be or what tools you should be using. So people have mentioned that as well in the chat and in the responses to those polls. Your reputational risk from AI generated errors. Legal risks, right? We say the human in the loop, but someone referred to it as the human in the jail because the AI isn't going to go to jail if you do something that's not allowed with your AI. The human who approved it or who used it is going to be the one that's responsible. So, Nura, I wanted to just ask you quickly about that vendor commitment issue. Can you talk a little bit more about that and how to think about it?
Yes, absolutely. I recently saw a non-profit organization start with one tool, say Microsoft 365 Copilot, and then decided they like ChatGPT better, you know, and then they switch again to a newer model like Claude, which better met their needs. So this kind of tool churn is happening a lot. It means that you, as a non-profit organization, will want to plan for the possibility of switching tools or the vendor changing their product, and consider the training and change management needed each time you switch. So staff aren't confused. It's important to track these changes that are happening and decisions are made effectively. Otherwise, you risk folks or your staff going rogue with their own preferred tools. So more shadow IT or shadow AI, as it's called.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And this one is also just a really quick sort of guideline of what a good AI policy should cover. I'm going to include this link in the chat of the acceptable use
Mhm.
template that we have on our website. That's a free download. You can use it as a starting point. But the things that a good AI policy should cover is that acceptable use, the data handling rules. If you have, compliance that you have to be aware of, like HIPAA, or you work with, sensitive communities or children, like what data you're allowed to just through your regular IT policy that you're allowed to use. Human review requirements, the vendor vetting, like this could be its own webinar because it is so opaque and so difficult to find the real information about what the different AI tool vendors, the big six tech companies are doing. Who's approving the new tools, training expectations. So, what you are expecting in terms of your staff, what training you're going to provide, what training you want them to have as they're using the new tools. So, all of that is something that can go in your policy. I would say your policy definitely needs to be um, a it needs to be something that is evolving as you're evolving it's changing so fast that you need to be able to be flexible with that. Um, and then Nura, I think we're going to talk a little bit about who is at the decision-making table and what formats can kind of work for that.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. We strongly recommend a cross-functional team or a committee that brings together various perspectives. So you'll want leadership, certainly, because leadership supports is essential for resource allocation and culture. Then you want to also look at possibly a board member or board oversight, especially on risk and ethics side of things. This has been mentioned in the chat quite effectively. So a strong board or a strong board member, that board oversight will help with that, addressing the ethics side of things. Getting your board on board to speak is helpful for setting the tone and maintaining accountability. Then your IT team or provider definitely needs to be at the seat, at the table. They understand the systems and security implications, so you have that advice, IT advice in terms of implementation. Legal HR and on compliance roles are also important there. So when it comes to governance, since governance is all about policy and people, HR can ensure it's integrated into training, into hiring, and legal can flag compliance issues if you have some. And more importantly, representation from teams that will use AI, basically everyone that's going to use AI. So the end user should have input to share concerns and practical needs. Uh, the more diverse the committee is, the better. You'll catch more potential issues and gain more buy-in. In fact, research by TechSoup and BoardSource, for instance, found organizations where staff on board co-developed AI principles, launched 12 times more pilots, and scaled AI more effectively.
Yeah,
So yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
yeah, go ahead. So I was going to just wrap it up here. Is having the right people involved not only produces a smarter policy, it also builds trust.
Yeah, so I shared the link in the chat as well from
Mhm.
board.dev, which is this great organization that helps with developing nonprofit boards around technology. And yeah, it's just this really wonderful report that they did. So I'm going to keep moving us along. You were going to share another case study with us about kind of how individual the policy might need to be.
Yes, this case, study case highlights a nonprofit that did a lot of things right by starting with governance in mind. This organization produces plenty of public-facing content. So think of reports, articles, newsletters. So they wanted to leverage AI for initial writing and editing assistance. Right away, they realized this was a high-risk area because anything inaccurate or off-brand might reach the public and harm their reputation. So they set up a governance approach around writing using AI. They updated their writing style guides and standard operating procedures to incorporate AI. For instance, they gave staff guidelines on how to use AI to draft content that will sound or that still sounded like the organization's authentic voice. They required every AI-assisted draft goes through normal editorial review process, so you can see human in the loop, ensuring that a person checks facts and tone. They even did targeted training sessions on how to write with AI, meaning how to prompt the tool with their specific style and how to edit its output to meet their standards. As a result, they were able to speed up some writing tasks without losing trust and consistency with their audience expects. So the key lesson here is effective governance is specific to your nonprofit organization's needs and values. Drill down. That's very important here to understand your needs and values. In their case, content quality and voice were paramount. So they made sure that the AI policy and training honed in on that. And because they started early with these guardrails, their staff felt comfortable and confident using the tools.
So, such a great example of how specialized your policy might need to be and kind of areas where you might be able to make that, get started because you know that they're higher risk or very important to your organization. So now I wanted to give you a prompt for the chat. Has your nonprofit had an AI related problem or close call? You can drop a yes or no in the chat and give some examples. Some examples we've seen are like a permissions sprawl. So you have, I guess, permissions that are, maybe not very locked down, and suddenly you have AI and it's giving people access to documents that they have permissions to that maybe you didn't know they had permission to it. Um, Something due to implementation that wasn't guided or intentional. As Nora was saying, the issue of, I mean, they didn't have the close call, but they knew in that organization that they were going to want to make sure that their AI assisted publications, the editorial process was just as rigorous as it would be. So we're seeing some, I want to see in the chat a couple of things. Most people are saying mercifully, no, not yet. Generating AI slot pictures or misspelled words and slides. Yep, that happens. I had one that I had put on our website and it still had the little prompt and I didn't realize it until the next day. I was like, oops, I put that in there. Although I'm very transparent at the end of my AI assisted blog
Mm.
posts, I say at the bottom I used AI to help me with writing. So no one's showing up for meetings anymore because they all send their AI summary bots. I love it. All right, I'm sorry we're going to have to get, as I said, we're going to go pretty quick through some of these last slides. But Nora, we wanted to talk about where you are in the process and maybe some next steps.
Yeah, so we know folks attending today are in different places with AI. So we want to provide next steps for three scenarios here. If you're just starting, maybe you're a skeptic, have no clue where to begin. Well, here's the first thing you want to do, audit what tools staff are already using. So sometimes there's discovery tools that could be added onto your system, so you can ask staff to tell you which tools they are using. You might be surprised how they are using AI already under the radar. So a quick survey would help, or informal check will help you with that. Then you start with the leadership conversation. Bring AI up to your leadership team and board if the board is accessible, and then share some of today's insights to get support and assign ownership. Then you want to leverage templates and resources. For instance, you can download our AI acceptable use policy template, which was provided, and also you can adapt to your needs. So downloading is one, but really looking at what your organization needs and adapting it is where the work needs to happen internally. And having even a simple draft could help you with those discussions and actions. Then if you are building AI, then maybe you've already started using AI or you're actively piloting it. You want to identify your governance leads. It's kind of form that cross-functional team that we mentioned earlier, a designated owner, AI owner to manage this initiative. Then you want to draft and adapt the AI acceptable use policy or governance policy that will be putting together in writing now that areas that are covered within the acceptable use policy in terms of data or any oversights that is happening, and then refining it as you learn more about the pilot. They want to build in training. Start with staff training as you deploy the AI tool, and then plan to review your progress regularly. This has to have some frequency to it. It may be more than, instead of having a single year review, you may want to create time to do it quarterly or even monthly, depending on as you are going into implementation. Because continuous improvement is key when it comes to these policies. But if you need a reset, then you would say, you've already had an AI mishap or realized things are chaotic. Don't panic. Do an assessment. That's the first step. Figure out what's happening, who is using what AI tools, what went wrong, and how bad it was. And it's important to understand the root cause calmly. Then you want to identify what happened and why. And then that will help you kind of, was you ask those questions, was it a training gap, a policy vacuum, misconfigured setting? Getting to understand why will help you fix the issue. Then you can reset your governance there based on what you find, tighten and create your policies and processes accordingly, and communicate changes clearly to your team. It might involve pausing some AI use until guardrails are in place. then relaunching them with better oversight. The overall message here is wherever you are, take the next step. Uh, even if even if it's small steps, like drafting a one-page policy or asking your staff what they are currently using, can significantly reduce risk and set you on the right path.
Yeah, this slide is pretty packed, but again, I hope that it's helpful to you, and this will all be on our website as well at communityit.com. But kind of ideas for making it stick that we've talked a lot today that governance isn't a one and done. Your IT policies need regular review and updating, all of them, but especially your AI policy. Staff training is definitely an ongoing issue for these types of tools. So update your onboarding, but also build in learning time at a cadence and style that fits your organization and have regular reviews and check-ins with your staff or with everyone, all staff, to ensure the training is working for your people. So people have such different learning styles. Some people like to go off by themselves and just learn the tool, just play with it. Other people really need something more structured. They want to do it together. I think one thing I've been hearing a lot is that the more we learn AI together and become AI literate together, the more unified our voices in the philanthropy sector can be on what we want these tools to be like and how we want them to work and what ethics and safeguards we want put in place. And also, don't forget to build in some checkpoints. So pilot a lot, build multiple go, no go points into your decision making for big AI decisions. And remember that right now your AI tools are being implemented through a lot of little decisions as well. So just kind of wrapping your head around the whole issue that is AI at nonprofits. I'm going to share some additional resources with everyone in the chat, and it will also be in the transcript and on the website. Some of them are from our website already. We have an AI library, we have a governance library, and we have the Nonprofit AI podcast on Tuesdays, which is where we talk a lot about some more of the ethical issues and environmental issues that are coming up. There's some good frameworks. There's that literacy link to the Department of Labor article. So I hope that these are helpful for you. And we're going to move on. I think we do have just a minute or so for a question. And we had a really good one at registration. So I hope that it's okay if I share that. I'm going to ask you, Nura, how do we ensure AI governance frameworks just don't exist on paper, but are actually implemented in day-to-day operations? And I feel like since you've been working with organizations, you've probably seen the good, the bad, and the ugly around this. So if you could share with us a couple of tips.
Yeah, that's the where the key challenge is. But I think what I've seen with success is leadership, recognizing how important AI is to their mission and ensuring that stakeholders across all departments and teams have a continuous kind of review and communication with their staff around the AI use in their organization. So whether it's having the governance policy published in their internet and periodically in their staff meetings, just bringing up progress and the use of AI that has been effective because it's new and people are interested and have some there are use cases where collaboration has happened and a staff meeting is actually a good opportunity to share, hey, this is what we're doing with AI so that others that are maybe skeptical or have not yet will be given the opportunity to just be aware that the progress is being made and there's governance around AI. So leadership buy-in and making sure that in meetings or the communication is happening regularly more than it used to be in the past.
I heard it also said that it's important to have spaces where people can talk about it and have that be, welcoming and create a sense that we're all in this on the team together at your nonprofit, and people are in way different places. People have really strong opinions on AI for sure, on their tool that they're using that they love, and what they're using the AI for, whether they should be using it at all. And that it's important to have those kind of learning spaces where everybody is welcomed at whatever point they're at, so that you can really talk about it transparently. And that saves you from finding out later on down the road that somebody just has not been on board with this whole thing the whole time, or that somebody has gone off in their own direction and maybe purchased and spent a lot of money on something that, maybe isn't secure for your organization or doesn't align with your values. So making that kind of space where people can be open and have questions and appreciate each other's points of view, I think is also something that's particularly important around AI.
Absolutely. That's an excellent point there. That regular space, that is something regular. People know they can jump into that space and have those candid conversations without being judged, about their position and whether they are for or against AI is important.
Yeah, yeah. We got one more question in the chat, which is what metrics have you found helpful when organizations are developing and measuring their AI governance? That's a good question.
Yeah,
Metrics.
yeah,
So early in the
yeah,
game.
yes. We're in the mostly, I would say, an experimental phase at the moment. But organizations actually can look at key metrics when it comes to whether, is it really truly saving st staff time, or are staff just still experimenting with these tools? So if you have defined goals, that is one way you could actually track governance, kind of how governance is working. One area that I've seen is through the rollout process. That definition is presented in terms of the goal for using the AI. So we ask the question of why do we need to use AI, and what are the goals we want to achieve using AI. That would help you then develop metrics that you could use to measure the performance of the use of AI, knowing your goals. Some goals could be automation of workflow processes between teams. Some could be an example where this organization had to develop a process for the nonprofit to be able to write in a human-like using AI, human-like process using AI. So goals really help you define what your metrics would be ultimately.
We have another question, which is how do you take into account the ethical and environmental impacts of AI in your recommendations? And I know
Wow.
you've had organizations who have been asking you about that. So, do you have a quick
Yes.
answer? That's like a whole webinar, I think,
Yeah,
itself, but some quick tips.
yes, it is a whole webinar, but indeed, core values are very important, and we cannot dismiss that from people. A lot of people are working in a nonprofit organization. They believe in the mission, they believe in the cause. So having an understanding of the environment itself, what is environmental impact? Some of them are quite exaggerated, some of them are actually real here. So I think that education piece, that literacy about the true impacts is needed in order to make a true judgment call. But you can see from certain examples that we've seen that the true environmental cost is kind of hidden and it's not quite transparent. So having to get that information is really critical to helping you decide whether the use of AI is actually worth and is not against your mission and your ethics that you totally understand.
I think, I'm sorry, there was another comment that came in, but I think we're gonna have to, well, we might have a moment or two for it. Would you mind elaborating on the exaggerated impact?
Yeah, so for instance, if you think about energy, how what energy is used, ideally the way it's communicated to us is when I write a prompt, I am using a lot X amount of energy. My prompt is X amount of energy. But if we look at it holistically, this prompt is not just one person writing this prompt. It's not just my core responsibility, but as a whole, the entire world that is using AI, we want to understand how much of that is truly impacting the world. So they could say if you like write a long prompt, it's actually consuming X amount of compute power. But as a whole, how much compute power are we actually truly using? So that is where having to understand those nuances that would help you in defining whether this goes against your ethics. Because there are key nuances within when it comes to prompt engineering, for instance.
Yeah, so there's different, I mean, it's all it's complicated, right? What you're
Hmm.
taking into effect. Are you close to a coal-fired plant, which is where your electricity is coming from? Are you using more renewable energies? Like where in the country are you? Where in the world are you? There's lots of different complicating impacts. I can't find it right now, but I will put it in the transcript. There was a really good ebook from MIT that just came out a couple of weeks ago there where they did a lot of estimating of what the total cost of energy and there's some other organizations that are working on the water use issues. So I appreciate the question. I will share that link when I can. I'll put it in the transcript. I was just looking for it now and I couldn't find it quickly. I wanted to go back over the learning objectives for today. So, what do you need to know about AI implementation? What is AI literacy? What is AI governance? What are good models to follow for decision making? What are some AI risks? And what are some emerging best practices from case studies? Nora, I want to thank you because I think we covered all of this, even though we had to rush right through some of it. But we did touch on all of those things, and I hope we gave the audience something more to think about. I wanted to invite everyone back next month. We are doing another webinar, which is, well, AI will probably come into it, but it's not about AI because if you're like me, everything is AI all the time. So we're going to talk about Google Workspace, which is something that a lot of nonprofits are using and administer themselves, especially if you're a smaller nonprofit, you're a startup and you just set up Google Workspace yourself. I set it up for my own business several years ago. And if you did that, you are in good company. We are seeing up to 50% of our new clients come to us with Google Workspace as they grow and they realize they need a bit more help to manage it. We are one of the only MSPs that has a lot of experience with Google Workspace, and we are having our expert in that, Steve Longenecker, who is our director of IT consulting, with us in June to talk about the differences with how Microsoft sets up security, how Google Workspace sets up security. Um, there are some things that you can do. Google Workspace can be very secure. You can do some things as you grow that will keep you secure now and prepare you to stay secure later. If you grow to a larger staff members, if you want to stick with Google Workspace, or if you're using it in a hybrid with some Microsoft as well. So that is going to be at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific on Wednesday, June 17th. And I will share that link with you now. You can register if you are on Google Workspace and are thinking about security. This can help you. Please don't forget as you exit the webinar today to take our short survey. One lucky winner chosen at random will receive a $25 gift certificate for helping us out. And you can join us on Reddit/r/nonprofit IT management for more questions and answers with Nora for about the next 30 minutes or check in later, check in anytime, and we'll be checking back on that Q&A thread over there to see if we can answer some more of your questions. Nora, I want to thank you so much for joining us today and helping us with all of this expertise and all the experiences that you've had with our different clients, large clients, smaller clients, and different things that they're trying to do with AI and how they're managing their governance. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
And to everyone who joined us in the webinar, I really appreciate your time today. You spent an hour with us, which is an hour you could have been doing something else. So we appreciate it. Hope this was helpful. It's a huge, big topic. As I said, we have lots of other AI resources on our website, communityit.com. So I hope you can join us there or over on Reddit. And we'll be back next month with another webinar. You can find all of our past webinars are in videos on our website as well. So just thank you so much for joining us today and take care.